Everyone, it is 5:30 and the Cleveland City Schools Board of Education will now come to order. I've asked Kelly Kaiser to lead us in a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you would, please join me for a moment of silence. Now if we could all stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser. Our student rep, Ava Davis, she's not with us today. And we have Peggy Pastor-Phil, she's joining us online. So she is here, but she's remote. A couple things I want to mention to you. As chairman of the Cleveland City Board of Education, I'm committed to running an orderly and efficient meeting, treating everyone with respect. Board members will be provided equal voice for all matters, should communicate through the director of schools for addressing his staff. Reminders for parents and the community. The Board of Education policies can be found on the clevelandschools.org website. When there, click District, Board of Directors, and select Board Policies. Our meetings are not public forum. However, the board has made accommodations for a city resident, Cleveland City Schools employee, or parent guardian of a Cleveland City Schools student to address the board via School Board Policy 1.404, which includes two options along with the requirements listed. Those options being appearing before the board via a pre-meeting request, and you do that through the Director of Schools office, or addressing the board on agenda items via same-day requests at the podium where sign-ups are. So, do we have any public comments today?
We do not.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. Board members, is there anything you want to take off the consent agenda? All right, so I'd like to entertain a motion to accept this consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Say no. All right, it passes. All right, the next item on our agenda is regular agenda, director's update.
All right. Director's update. First off, I'm proud to announce that Cleveland City Schools has been named an Arts Partner School System by the Tennessee Arts Academy based on our commitment and belief in the significance of arts education in our schools. So we're always proud of the arts program, and I know tomorrow at Rotary we're going to be spotlighting Arnold. Last week we had the opportunity to spotlight the Renaissance group from the high school. So it's always a pleasure to spotlight the fine arts and the great job that our students are doing in those programs. In fact, Ross has their own presentation a little bit later tonight. In fact, it's happening right now in certain grades, but it's going to be happening for a few more hours. Also, winter sports are well underway now for both the middle school and the high school. I encourage you to check out the app or check out the website for information on all the different activities that are underway. We have a lot of basketball, bowling, wrestling, and other events that are happening, and it's always a lot of fun to get out and watch our students competing. Of course, elementary schools have theirs as well. Winter concerts are underway at our schools. I think that Andrea did send out a list of all the different activities that you're more than welcome to attend. I know my calendar is chock full of different holiday concerts, band concerts, and various things that I'm going to try to make it to, and I hope that you're able to get out there as well. This is an important one. Don't miss this one. Santa is going to be at the high school this Saturday morning. This is an important day. Breakfast with Santa is taking place. The CHS cheerleaders are sponsoring that, and I know they would appreciate seeing you there, or grandkids, or kids, or whatever. And hey, we're all kids this time of this year, so that'll be fun. It's always a good event, and hope to see some folks there. And not that anybody needs a reminder on this if you work in our schools, but the Christmas and winter break is coming up very soon. It starts on December 21st, runs through January 7th for our students and staff. So I know they're looking forward to getting a good break coming up very soon, well deserved, and I know they'll enjoy some time to do whatever it is they want to do. So that's perfect. So with that, that's my update for tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Dyer. Next on the agenda, we have a spotlight from E.L. Ross Elementary.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Dr. Stone and students, when they're ready, to come forward.
They have a queue, you
Oh,
know.
okay.
Thank you all so much for letting us take just a few minutes. I know it is a really busy season and you have a lot of important things to do, but we always appreciate a few minutes to share about my favorite topic in the entire world, which is Ross Elementary School. If you know me at all, you know it is my favorite topic in the whole world, and I can tell you all the wonderful things. And I just want to thank you all for your support of our schools, each and every single one of you. I know work so hard for our schools and to advocate for us. And so instead of hearing me go on and on, I thought you might really want to hear from some of our customers. So I brought 3 fifth grade students with me tonight, if you guys want to come up. Do you want them on the mic? Is it okay if they're here? Does it matter?
Dr. Raper, where do they need to be to?
We'll pick them up.
Okay, good.
They're loud. Come on over, guys. Next slide, please. All right, these are our 3 student representatives for tonight. We've got Axel and Gemma and Bridget. They're all 5th graders at Ross, and all 3 of them have been at Ross for 3 years. So they're going to have some things they want to tell you about our school, but at the end, if you have questions, they're your people, because these are the experts and they are ready for any question you ask, okay? The topics that they decided last week, we got together to talk about what do we feel like as a group makes Ross special. And so these are 3 things that they wanted you guys to know about Ross. The first one's going to be our house system, which is our positive behavior system that we have. The second is called Rocket 5.0. We started this last year at Ross, and it is a list of 50 life hacks that we think make kids successful, or really people successful. So we work on those all year. And then finally, the 40 book challenge, which is a really exciting reading challenge for just 5th grade. All right, who's that?
I think the house system is important to our school because every time we have a house meeting, we do different activities that helps us learn how to be a better student.
We get house points when we get a question correct or for being kind. That motivates us to work harder on being nicer. After every 9 weeks, we have a house party. We do fun activities and we have soda and treats.
And you'll see some pictures on the next slide of just some of our hallway displays and our house shirts and our house selection ceremony in the fall, which is a really big to-do.
The Rocket 5.0 is a positive behavioral system that helps us with our behavior.
We get armbands every time we show a Rocket 5.0 skill. We get a picture on a plaque when we get an armband.
Every month, we get a new word to learn about and launch. This makes our morning more fun, and we keep a positive attitude throughout the day.
So here you can see our first word was empathy. We use the Capturing Kids' Hearts character words throughout the year. And so those are our 9 empathy missions. And the first one is to greet visitors and new students and make them feel welcome. We meet new people and shake their hands and repeat their name. And so each month, as students are exemplifying these, they get a wristband and their picture on the wall.
The 40 Book Challenge is a fun challenge about reading books. You get a sticker on your reading log for every book you read, and you try to get 40 books at the end of the year. We have a wide variety of really good books that our teachers give us to read.
If we read a book and we tell our teacher about it, we get to do something called lunch bunch, which means we also get to eat in our teacher's classrooms and we get a special treat.
And here you can see where they write their name on the cabinet, where they have chalk paint when they reach a certain number of books, and their reading logs. And at the end of the year at the 5th grade ceremony, those who have gone above and beyond, we reward them with a special medal at the end. So, all right, what questions do you guys have for these 3 or for me?
Do you have quite a few people who read 40 books a year?
Do you have anybody that's there yet?
We almost have someone soon.
You almost have somebody now. Last year we had 3 that went way above and beyond, like 60 something. And then I feel like maybe we had 10 or 11 that got to 40. And it can't just be any 40, it has to be 5 of a certain genre. It has to meet all the rules to get them to read all different kinds of books. So.
That's really good.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's great.
Are these your parents in here with you? You want to point them out? They're proud. They're here with you.
Bridget's mom.
Is the one in the black and yellow.
Hello.
Gemma's mom. And I'm Axel's mom.
Thanks for joining
Thanks
us.
for coming.
The last thing is we're singing over here, and we have a book fair, and we are making ornaments until 7:30. So if this gets boring,
Come next door. So.
Thank you.
Oh, let me see if I can grab them real fast.
While we're going to grab them for a picture, I want to say thanks to Danielle Seals for your support coming to our meetings. Danielle's with the Chamber of Commerce, so appreciate you.
sorry, we're back. Couldn't get enough.
Got it back?
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
All right, good suggestion. Thank y'all. Thank you. Now you can go sing.
All right, the next item on our agenda is with Krista McKay, and that's our site committee update.
Okay, if it's okay, I'm just gonna bring Brian up to talk about the proposed Candy Creek addition.
All right. Thanks for inviting me to come. If I could, take the opportunity to just report back on the recent bid opening that we held on the Raider Drive building build out. We received 3 bids, and our low bid was from Wilder Contracting, which is a contractor that's done work for Cleveland City Schools. They've actually done a couple projects, so we know them and feel comfortable with them. They're located in Harrison, so they're close. Their bid was for $1,333,230. So they've confirmed that they're good with the bid. We've actually sent contracts to them, and they're preparing their bonds and insurance. So as soon as we get those, we'll execute the contract and get them started. The contractual requirement is that they're to be finished by July 1. So that's going to give you guys the opportunity to get moved in before school starts. So everything's on schedule. Any questions?
Just for clarity, that is July 2024, right?
Yes. Yep.
And is that for the whole building or the lower floors? How much?
Their scope is predominantly the lower floor, and then we're renovating the 2 second floor bathrooms.
Okay.
So that's really the scope of work. So it's the boardroom, the entrance, kind of the common lobby area, the restrooms, the new restroom upgrades and expansion in the back, and then the 2 restrooms that are on the second floor.
And then the other half of the building we'll still do in-house. We'll continue that on an in-house basis.
Okay. The image that we sent is a first for me, the first time that I've ever added on to a building that I've designed. So kind of exciting, I guess. Makes me feel old, too. But I wanted to put together this slide just to be able to give you guys a visual for what the expansion looked like, how it would impact the playground. I know there were some questions on, how much space it would take. So the yellow shaded area there on the end of the classroom wing represents the 2 classrooms per wing. And as you can see, it's able to fit in there as we planned without disturbing the playground areas. So pretty clean addition. We had planned for it throughout the process. So the soil has been prepped, the utilities are there. and should be something that we can transition and construct pretty efficiently. I did update the cost estimate. We had a project at bid that had some common size and similarity of construction type, so it actually came in at $330 a square foot. So it's a little more than what we had talked about last year. Hopefully, we'll see better numbers. Hopefully we can kind of carry on the trend like the admin building, which it was less than what we had projected. So we're, kind of from a bidding standpoint, we're seeing good competition from general contractors, but there's still so much work that's out there. It's really the trades, electrical, mechanical, that we're seeing maybe not as much competition as what we would hope for or as what we have seen in the past. So, but markets are different, regions are different. So I did put together a proposed schedule. So what we're proposing, if the board approves moving forward, is that we could bid the project in April, and that would allow the contractor to be able to go through the submittal process, get permits in place, and be able to hit the ground running as soon as school's out in May. And then our goal would be to do a lot of the heavy lifting while students aren't on campus. So, a lot of the concrete and masonry work, you'd have a chance to be able to get that work in place before students come back in August. And then what we were projecting is basically about a 6-month construction period of time. Because really it's the right time to start a project. Usually that's pretty good weather period with not a lot of delays. So, maybe it's a little better than that, but I think that would kind of be worst case scenario is having it finished by January of 25.
Any questions?
$330 a square foot, what are you finding as being the general construction cost outside of maybe a governmental style building, and just if it was me building a new similarly structured building in the private sector?
There's quite a bit of range to it. We've seen like office construction that would have some masonry, some metal stud, light gauge framing. It's been as high as $420. I had a project that bid maybe about 4 months ago that was that high. So, but I think classroom additions are the cheapest of any part of the school to construct. The gymnasium and the cafeteria and those spaces tend to go high. New school construction, we're thinking that's probably in the 350 square foot range, because there's some balance to it. Also, scale plays a little bit of a role. So the bigger a project, the lower the cost per square foot typically trends. But a lot of it depends on the impact of the mechanical, the electrical, and plumbing systems. Geothermal tends to go a little higher because of the well field. In this case, the well field's already been sized, so that's not required. And the geothermal interior piping has been sized for us just to extend it very simply, add the units. So there's not a lot of additional cost in this to add these.
Yeah, so the utilities and all, it was all sized for
Yes.
having these
So there's
classrooms completed. It's just a matter of tying into all that.
and we may do better. The 330, was based on a project that bid in McMinnville, and it was right around 6,000 square feet, kind of a classroom addition on the end of the building. So this region may be a little better than that.
So how many students we're adding or what's the new capacity when this is done?
So the wing on my left, well, the idea would be that's the K1 classroom. So I think you can still put 20 in those.
And those would have
bathrooms
and sinks inside of those.
Yes. Yeah, and then the middle wing, you're in that same category, so you're looking at 80 between those two wings, and then the fourth and fifth grade wing, you can get up to 25.
So 100 and
105.
how many?
105, so.
Tied to that, but with our class sizes, how does that translate? How many would we be fitting in there?
Well, we still have to follow the state mandates for class sizes, so we'd have to make sure that we put that in there. But what Hal's saying is max would be 105. We try to go probably a little bit lower than that, just so we can meet the class sizes that we like to see, those lower numbers, when we can do that. So, for next year, we're projecting probably need to add another teacher at Candies Creek, just based on the size of the school right now. So this will give enough leeway to do that, and then still see, future growth.
If I remember correctly, these classrooms are a little north of 900 square feet. And so,
size.
We'll work with the staff to make sure, that we still want to do the casework and all those things the same way. But
And you said there'll be bathrooms and...
In the K1, so in the one wing for the youngest children.
Yeah, I wanted to double check with this being a little bit higher than we originally thought. Does that still fit with where we were pulling that money from to do
It does.
this?
Yeah, Cindy and we've met, and that still fits within the range that we have for our self-payment of this, taking care of this through our funds.
Any other questions? You're going to submit this as a recommendation?
We didn't vote on it as a recommendation at the site committee. We just talked about it and got the general consensus, so this would get a first and a second hearing.
Okay. I'd like to entertain a motion for this presentation for the upgrade to Candies Creek Elementary School.
I still move.
Here, we got a first, got a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it passes. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it. Drive safely.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is ATS The Bridge. Jared Waldrop.
Thank you so much for allowing us to be here tonight. My name is Jared Waldrop, and this is Andrew Wells. We work together with ATS The Bridge, and you can see our board of directors there on the screen. You probably know most of those people that serve with us on our board, and we're thankful for the opportunity to come and speak with you all tonight about a topic that's it's a growing problem in our community. It's a growing problem nationwide, globally, and that's the issue of drugs. And tonight I'm going to present a problem that I think everyone needs to be aware of, whether you're an educator, a parent, just a member of our community, because it's affecting our kids. And we all live here. We all love Cleveland. We all love this community. And I think it's time to really begin to talk about it and come together as a community. And so I'm going to start off by showing a video. And in this video, you're going to probably see some faces that you recognize, because these students, you'll see about 25 of them in this video, but they represent another 160 in our local schools, our high schools especially, ambassadors with ATS The Bridge. And they are students taking a stand in the schools saying, I'm choosing to live a drug-free life, and I'm going to be a voice within my school, within my sphere of influence, to help others make the same choice. And I'm very proud of these students, so please watch this video.
Opioid addiction and the spread of fentanyl are on the rise at an alarming rate.
Every 5 to 7 minutes,
someone in the United States dies of a drug overdose.
That's over 107,000 people in a year.
In a year.
That's like wiping out all
Of Cleveland and Bradley County.
According to the American Lung Association, each day,
Over 6,100 students under the age of 18 vape for the very first time. We're talking about student nicotine addiction.
Student nicotine addiction.
Student nicotine addiction and THC use.
Vaping is not a safe alternative to cigarettes. Vaping is just as addictive, just as dangerous. Vaping can be deadly.
Let that sink in.
It's time to stop pretending like this isn't a problem.
It's time to stand up.
It's time to stand up.
It's time to stand up.
For your family.
for your friends,
For your teammates.
For your teammates.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time to stand up.
For those who don't have the strength to stand alone.
it's time to stand up
I won't let substance abuse dictate my story.
because this is my life.
This is my life.
My life.
My life.
And this is your life.
Your life.
This is your life.
We're tired of drugs ending our dreams and destroying our generation, so we're taking a stand. Will you stand with us?
For the sake of time, I won't show that second video. But when you see those faces, you see the future of our community. You see leaders. You see those that are going to be guiding us in the very near future. And I'm proud of them because they're seeing a problem, they're standing up, and they're doing something about it. And in that video, you saw some very staggering stats. So according to the American Lung Association, every day, and this isn't weekly, this isn't monthly, this isn't yearly, but every day, 6,100, so 6,100 kids under the age of 18 vape for the very first time every single day. So when you look at the numbers adding up, that's 2.2 million last year. And it's become such a problem that, and I'll show you a video in just a few minutes here, we were able to get our hands on all the vapes that were confiscated from the high schools, middle schools in our local area. There was enough vapes to line 100 yards of a football field. So we're talking about a problem that's here, that's part of culture, that's not going away, and the amount of nicotine and THC that students are taking into their systems is extremely dangerous. And you can move through the PowerPoint here. You can keep going. And you can't talk about vapes without talking about the drug problem as a whole. So when you think about the American lives that were lost just last year, around 107,000, that's like filling up Neyland Stadium to the max capacity and then adding about 5,000 more on the field and then wiping out all of those lives. And those are lives that were not lost to car wrecks, heart attacks, cancer. That's not even American lives going to war. These are people that made a choice. And granted, a large amount of that number would have been existing addicts that finally got to the point that their body could not handle what they were putting in it anymore and passed. But a large number, studies are showing, are teens, are people that did not regularly use drugs, or people that maybe use drugs for just the very first time. And you have to talk about the overall drug picture when you're talking about vaping, because one of the most staggering studies that's out there is finding that anyone under the age of 18 that vapes THC runs the risk of being at high risk for opioid misuse later on in life. And with 6,100 kids a day vaping for the very first time, a large amount of that being nicotine, but a large amount of that also being THC, we're not going to touch the drug problem in America unless we address the vaping issue with our youth. And so thinking in the long term, when it comes to high-powered THC, when it comes to nicotine addiction, when it comes to the way that it is affecting young lives, in the way that they are having to be disciplined, in the way that they're losing opportunities in school and in sports, the way they're getting in trouble with the law, the way that it's changing their brains and their developing bodies 20, 30 years down the road, what does that look like for us as a community? What does it look like for the healthcare system? What does it look like for society in general? we've got to protect our kids, because this is not healthier than smoking a cigarette. Despite what has been put out there on YouTube, despite what's been put out there on different billboards, this vape in particular, and this is a nicotine vape, this Elf Bar brand vape, has the equivalent of 590 cigarettes. So roughly 30 packs of cigarettes in one container. And one of the reasons why it's so dangerous is if you have somebody that's over the age of 21 that's legally able to purchase and consume this, it might take them 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks to, I guess you could say, responsibly get through it. But what we're finding is that middle schoolers, high schoolers that get a hold of these, they're burning through these vapes in 3 to 5 days. So you're talking about an enormous amount of nicotine going into the system of a child, going into a young developing body, fast path to addiction, and the way that they're setting their lives up to have to deal with a nicotine addiction for a very long time. And nicotine is a difficult habit to break, mostly because it affects the entire brain. And if you're affecting the entire brain of a brain that's supposed to develop up to the age of 25, think about the ramifications of that. We have students that are so addicted to their vape that they sleep with them under their pillow, believe it or not. They wake up in the middle of the night and they don't know if they're getting up to use the restroom or to take a hit off their vape. All they know is they're awake, and while they're awake, they're going to take a hit off their vape because their body is telling them that they need it. We have students that when these are confiscated from them, let's say parents find out and they're taken from them, are so addicted to the nicotine that they cry and shake because their body is going through withdrawals, and the parents have to go to Walmart and get nicotine patches and lozenges just to help curb the amount of nicotine that they are needing to regulate themselves. We're seeing a gigantic problem. You can move through the slides. And not just with nicotine. Nicotine's bad enough, being one of the most highly addictive chemicals that we can put in ourselves. But when it comes to cannabis, THC, when you hear a student talk about a cart or a cartridge, that's what this is. And this vial, this oil contains THC, which is the chemical in marijuana that makes you high. And when students are vaping THC, they are running the risk not only of a lifetime of later possible opioid misuse or opening the door to larger, harder drugs, but they are opening themselves up to getting sick. They're opening themselves up to making bad decisions in the here and now. And this is my opinion, this is Xander's opinion. Yes, there are a lot of harder, scarier drugs that are out there, but we believe that this is the drug, this is the scary drug right now in America, because it's being widely accepted and it is being consumed by younger and younger students. You can move through. And part of the reason is this: if you look at this graph, when you think about the potency or the power or the strength of THC back in 1995, it was under 4%. So I think when a lot of people that are older think about marijuana, they have the attitude, oh, it's just weed, it's just marijuana, it's just some pot. Well, back in the 90s, you might have been able to make that argument, so to speak, still illegal. But when you move into today's time, and as data is collected and processed, it's obviously a little slower because we're in almost 2024 now. But this coming from the RX Summit in Atlanta last year, and the data they were showing, as of 21, the average potency of a THC vape, the marijuana in that, was at 15%. That is extremely high, because studies are showing that anything above 10% literally begins to change the brain. And again, asking you to think about the effect that this might and is having on a developing brain, the brain of a child. And so when they get their hands on high-powered drugs like this, it is affecting them in ways that they don't understand, that we all don't even understand. And as they continue to use, it's only going to get worse. And what we have is an industry that is targeting our kids. And when you think about products like this, where, myself at 42, should I choose to use this, I could legally walk into one of our vape stores and purchase something and not have to hide it. But when you're looking at products like this that are disguised as other things, that should let us know they're not marketing these to adults. They're marketing them to children, kids, minors, people that need to hide them, people that need to use them discreetly. And we need to be aware. You can go through some quick facts. You can take a look at these facts. I won't read through all of them, but these facts are scary. And parents need to be aware. Teachers need to be aware. If you're not familiar with ATS, what we're about is we're about awareness. We're about teaching kids. And one of the things that honestly breaks my heart and Xandra's heart is the fact that we have to go into our elementary schools often because counselors will call us and ask us to come and address vaping with third graders because they've been bringing them to school or caught with them on the bus. Third grade. I have a fourth grader. I couldn't imagine him getting a hold of something like this and him taking that into his body. But it's the world that we live in. We're asked continually to come into younger and younger ages and talk about the issues and how dangerous they are, and not just vaping at this point, but we're talking often now about edibles. And this is going to be the next big wave, not just from a vaping standpoint that's dangerous enough, but these edibles that are being put out by the industry, having to teach kids what the signs and symbols are, teaching them that they have to read packaging, that when they're at somebody else's house, if something's on the counter, they don't just eat it, they have to know what they're looking at, they have to read the signs, we have to let them know that this triangle on a can or on a package, that is the Greek letter delta, and that stands for delta 8, 9, or 10, and so when you see this on a product, that is not for kids, that is not for you, because this right here is basically black cherry weed soda. So when you look at it, and it's the same size and shape as an energy drink can that you would see in any of our local gas stations, it can be easily mistaken, easily hidden. When you pour it out, it's clear, easily put into a water bottle. These products are getting sneakier and sneakier. They're using all sorts of branding that is very familiar, but then also very alluring to kids. And Xander's extremely knowledgeable about it. And is there anything you want to explain quickly? I'd encourage you to come here and let her talk to you about it.
And here's the gummies. And kids, when you eat gummies, you would eat a whole bag. You eat 3 or 4. That would send a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old, and we've seen it happen, to the ER where they'll stay for several days. The THC content, which is the psychoactive content in your marijuana, it really, really, really messes with these children and even adults. I mean, they're not sober when they consume these, so imagine the kids getting a hold of them.
Hey, Jared, on those, any one of those vaping devices, what is the comparison for the liquid in there versus packs of cigarettes?
So the comparison versus packs of cigarettes. So from nicotine content standpoints, it's very, very high. So this one in particular, like I said, it's comparable to 590 cigarettes, and that's according to the New York Times that just put out a study. But if you go ahead a couple more slides, I'll show you this. One more. These are some common chemicals that you're going to find in this vape liquid. And if you read through it, a lot of it is chemicals that you're going to find in weed killer, antifreeze. You're going to find it in car exhaust, heavy metals like nickel, tin, and lead. Obviously all things that do not belong in somebody's lungs. And this is not water vapor. It is not flavored water. It is not something that is harmless. It's not even vapors. Think more like a hairspray, like an aerosol, and something that is coating your lungs. And we're finding that there's lung injuries that are coming out where lungs are basically being shredded by these harsh chemicals. and lung transplants are having to take place. There's people that are dying, people that are being adversely affected in major ways. Their lives are changing. And so we tell kids when we talk to them, take a deep breath and exhale. We ask them what went in your lungs, and they say air or oxygen, and we tell them keep it that way. Because any foreign substance that you're putting into your lungs like that, it is going to affect you. And we're finding that those numbers are increasing. And a lot of it's kind of sneaky because, students that are going to be hiding this, we're finding that all of a sudden, this spike of fever, nauseous and uncontrollable vomiting, and, end up having to go to the ER to be treated. And these symptoms continue to come back with continual use. And that's not just with nicotine, but it's with THC as well. Using it enough that all of a sudden the nausea hits and it's just uncontrollable. And it's something that absolutely 100% should not be in the body of a young person. Now, people that are over 21, as has been ruled, they have to make their own decisions. They have to live with their choices and their consequences. But we're talking about kids. And to just lay out the gravity of the situation, if you would show video 3, I want you to see this visual of vapes that were confiscated in our schools just last year. And keep in mind that most of them were already destroyed. Like I said, a number of those devices were destroyed before we got our hands on the was it 86?
Yeah, it's over 85 pounds.
Over 85 pounds worth of vapes. That's a lot, 100 yards worth. And every single one of those represents a story where a student had a negative encounter with an SRO or a school official, a teacher, a coach. You're talking 100 yards, almost 700 devices, around $20,000 or so worth of product. And, it's staggering when you really see that and really begin to think about it. And then you begin to think about the ramifications of addiction, the consequences, and where do we go from here. So we just wanted to present this problem just to get everybody thinking, because parents need to know. They need to be educated. Kids need to be continually educated on the dangers of it. We need to start younger. We need to really take this issue head on, because this is our town. This is our community.
Any questions for Jared?
Thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. I'm still trying to process the amount of nicotine that you're talking about in one of those. You said that's equivalent to 590?
590, so almost 30 packs of cigarettes in one of these. Wow. And when I tell you that when middle schoolers and high schoolers get a hold of these, they're not taking their time. And what was scary, in a neighboring county with a 4th grade class, I held this up and asked 4th graders, how many of you have ever seen one of these before? 90% of the room raised their hand. And you hear kids shout out, hey, that's the one that my dad uses, or my mom uses, or my older brother, my older sister. They know what these products are. And when they get a hold of them, here's the problem, and here's why, I'll talk mainly about nicotine right here. Why this is so dangerous is because this is not a smoke break anymore. to smoke regular cigarettes now, you basically have to go find a place outside and you have to try. You've got to get the cigarette out, you've got to light that up, you've got to finish it and move on. But when it comes to this is not a smoke break anymore. This is now a lifestyle. When people are leaving their house, it's, I got my phone, I got my keys, got my wallet, got my vape, and it can happen anywhere. In a car, outside, inside. People know how to hide it enough to do it in restaurants, do it at the mall. It's becoming part of the regular rhythm of people's lives, and a lot of that is because of the addiction. And so people are taking in more nicotine per capita. And when students begin to live like that, you're talking about a lifetime of addiction that they're getting set up for, because that's going to be a very, very difficult one to break. And so when you have a product that is that high in nicotine content, they're going to be addicted before they even know really what's going on.
And if I can just add one thing that happens with these, you can easily become addicted quicker to nicotine with these vapes. We know that. There are enough studies now to know that. And what it does to our kids is anxiety, the sickness, the depression, the up and down, the anger. There are enough studies out there now, we know more and more, that it's more than just, affecting your lungs. It affects your whole body, and it affects them here. It affects their learning. And that's why, we know now we have to start sooner. We have to start prevention and awareness earlier. Mm-hmm. It's hard to reach these high schoolers because they know everything. And they will tell you when we do these vape classes, if your kids get in trouble and they have to come into these vape classes, they talk very candidly with us. We have to hear them when they talk. They are the ones who tell us. We wish somebody would have told us about this sooner, because it was just the lifestyle, it was just trendy and cute and fun. Now they realize they're addicted, and it's hard. Mm-hmm. And I've watched it up close and personal. It is hard. It's hard to see. But,
What all are you doing to reach the students?
So we spend a lot of time in schools, an awful lot of time, whether it's a large group assembly style format or speaking in a health class, big or small. We educate on, especially the younger ones. Some of them need to know what these look like and be aware, because nowadays it's not a matter of if they ever see one, it's when. And so they need to know what to look for, and they need to understand that when you see one of these, don't touch it, because the drug problem we have nowadays, you don't know what's in it or on it. And so we talk to them and educate them. And when it comes to the older students, you get higher up into middle school and high school, a lot of it becomes about choices and character education, and talking about the dangers of it and the trends and the gravity of the situation and the choices that they're making. So we talk to a lot of students. We try to partner with counselors as much as possible and resource them, help SROs, train and resource them as much as possible, because we spend a lot of time at trainings and getting the latest drug trends through Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and national conferences and different resources that we're able to stay up to date. Because the problem with this is that it's kind of like our phones. As soon as we buy our phone, it's already out of date, and technology tends to change every 6 months. When you think about just this last year, the progress of something like AI and how all of a sudden the world has changed. Drugs are the same way. As soon as one thing hits the market, they're already working on something else. And so these devices that they have to hide that look like a highlighter are only going to get worse and more, look more like a real product. And now there's, vapeware where it's, hoodie strings that are actually vapes. So helping those that need to know be trained and up to date. So our whole goal is to partner and to help, because we love this community. So partnering within the schools, partnering with different nonprofits, drug take-backs, anything in any way that we can help educate and help people be aware. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Are you guys going to hang around in case people have questions afterwards? Okay, thank you.
And I will say, we have ATS, and I appreciate them being here tonight. They're going to come to our next administrator meeting in January and speak to administrators so that they can see the same presentation and maybe a little bit more And then, but we appreciate the work you do in our schools. Thank you very much.
Thanks. All right, next on the agenda, we have proposed school calendar.
Good evening, everyone. This is the time of year that we bring a school calendar proposal to the board to take a look at, and we're looking at 2025 and 2026 calendar to be adopted, and according to our board policy, we are looking at specific dates that we always have to consider for the calendar, which is the 5 in-service days, which we have, along with a parent conference day, which is a part of that. We also have 180 student days, and with that we can put in some staff development days. We get 13 stockpiled days that we can use, and we choose to use 4 or 5 staff development days a year, depending on the way our calendar and our planning goes. And the difference of those are used for inclement weather type emergency days throughout the year. So the calendar before you is the 2025-2026 proposed calendar. I will say that in our school board policy, it also says that we will coordinate it and work closely with our Bradley County schools here with us. And we've had some good dialogue this year with their central office staff, and recently they approved their 2025-26 calendar, and our spring break, fall breaks for this 2025-2026 line up together. And very similar days are also at the holiday breaks here in December. So a lot of similarities when you look at the two calendars. So this is our proposal for the 2025-2026 school calendar.
Any questions?
So the May 26th and 27th,
Yes.
those teacher in-service days, do I read that correctly, that that's, if they're not used prior to, that they're available to be used? They're not required for everyone across the board automatically?
That's right. What we're finding now is a lot of flexibility and opportunities for us to provide PD along through the year, and even maybe the previous summer going into that school year. So the goal is that they would get their 12 hours of in-service prior to those days. So technically, more than likely, teachers would be out prior to Memorial Day. The goal is for us to have those all squared away and taken care of before that. But we put them there to cover those, so it gives flexibility so that we can provide the PD and be flexible enough to get that taken care of before then. But no, our goal is for everyone to be complete, because we also have, now we're on a cycle of our summer camps and programs, so we need to finish up and regroup that week after Memorial Day before June starts our summer projects and summer camps that we have.
Okay, Dr. Dyer, are you submitting this as a recommendation?
I am. So this is our draft calendar that I'm recommending to the board.
Okay. All in favor of accepting this draft calendar as the calendar for 2025-2026, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, it passes. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, we have Tennessee State Report Card.
And Mr. Cars is going to come up because later this month report cards will come out. We don't know what those are at this point as far as grades, but I wanted to make sure you knew how the calculations worked and the public knew how this calculation would work. So, Mr. Cars.
All right, I appreciate it. Good evening, and I'm glad to make it before the policy reading. So we'll go through the exciting world of school letter grades. So the history on this is that in 2016, the legislature passed a law requiring that schools be labeled with a letter grade, A to F letter grade. And that was supposed to happen in 2018 for the first time. So you can imagine that's a long time ago. We're finally to the point that the state has worked through. We had some testing issues and then COVID, and we are at the point where looks like they are going to assign letter grades to schools here. So I just wanted to give a presentation quickly. Dr. Dyer asked that I do that just to give you an idea. Some of the things we still don't know. It is one of the most interesting and frustrating things is we don't have all of the grading scales yet as far as what counts in what category, but I can show you the overview and give you an idea when it comes out, how it was calculated. So an overview, each school, it's going to be broken into 3 categories for elementary school and middle school, and then 4 categories for the high school level. So you can see in the chart there, schools are going to get a 1 to 5, and then that in the end is going to be weighted, multiplied, added together, and combined into a final number that then will turn into a letter grade. So we did find out just recently that this is going to come out on December 21st publicly. That is a tough day for us because we're going to be out of school, but that is the day that'll come out. We'll actually have a preview of that where it's embargoed, but the public will see that on the 21st. So in the chart you can see for elementary and middle, achievement, which is, if you remember, achievement is just the raw score. Did they pass or did they not? Are they proficient or are they not proficient? That's half for all grade bands. Growth is 40% up until the 8th grade, and then for high school is going to be a 30% of their overall score. We're pretty used to that. Growth is the TVOS score that we typically get. So that's a typical number we're used to. The next line down, the lowest 25th or 25% growth, is the same number, but we'll talk more in detail about it, but we're measuring the growth of the lowest 25% of our scores. So for elementary and middle, that's their entire score is comprised of that. And then for high school, there's an additional component for college and career ready. Okay, so I've moved that table up to the top right with no scores in it so that you can see all those scores are going to pile into there. And then that overall total is then going to go into the score at the bottom to then be assigned a grade level overall for the school. So for the achievement, this is kind of important to know, is for achievement and for college and career ready, we do not have the scores, the scale yet to know what is a 1, what is a 2, what is a 3, 4, and 5. So at this point, we can't even make a guess as to what our schools are going to be awarded. So let's say we're 40% proficient in the school. We don't know what that, we don't have a scale for that. Let's say that 65% of our high school is college and career ready. We don't know what that number is yet, but we can at least look at the structure of how it'll be calculated. We do have the growth scores are typically on 1 to 5, so we already know what those are. Okay, so let's talk about the achievement part. So achievement is typically only consisted of ELA and math recently, but in this new system, the grading system, all of the subjects will be counted. However, for elementary, social studies is still on a pause, so we don't have social studies at that grade level. So you can see the breakdown in achievement. ELA and math are equal, and then the science is in at 20%, and then at middle school level, it's 35, 35, and then 15 and 15. So a greater weight on the ELA and math, but counting social studies and science for the first time. High school, you'll have to remember back to your ratios and fractions. They're going to do a proportional percentage for that. So if you can imagine, in high school you have a different number of kids taking Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry every year compared to English 1 and 2. So they basically are going to weight that based on how many tests are you giving in each area. All right, so that was achievement. That was the first line that counts. Growth and that breakdown, like I said, we're used to overall growth. We've gotten that score for a while. However, they are going to create or are going to use all the subject areas. So the growth score will contain all of ELA, math, and science at the elementary level, and then we'll also include social studies at middle and high school. The lowest 25% growth, there's not a lot of detail about this yet, but in general, what I think they're doing is they're going to take, so these are all scores for last year, by the way. That's another thing we're talking about 22, 23 scores. So they're going to take 21, 22, our lowest 25 performers, and they're going to give us a growth score for that group of kids. So that number will be put in at that percentage. So I guess the focus there is to see how are we working with our lower performers. And then the college and career readiness, the fourth one, which only applies to the high school. You are college and career ready if you have one of these 4 bullets. So if you hit one of these 4 bullets, you count, and if you don't, you don't, and then we get a percent of how many students met this criteria. Pretty familiar with ACT 21 or higher. ASVAB AFQT, which I believe is Armed Forces Qualifying Test. Somebody can correct me if that's wrong, but I believe the ASVAB is what I've always called it. If you get a 31 or higher on that, and the high school is planning to give the ASVAB to all students starting this year, so that's another way they can qualify. They have to have at least 2 industry certifications, and one must be a tier 2 or 3, which is more rigorous type of industry certifications, but those are earned in the CTE courses, in certain CTE courses. Or they can earn at least 1 post-secondary credit, AP, dual enrollment, or dual credit. They have to actually earn the credit though. So you can see one of those will qualify them, 1 or more of those will qualify them, but if they can't hit any of those, they would not count in that percentage. And like I said, we don't have a scale, so let's say 85% are CCR, we don't know if that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yet. I guess we'll know on the 21st is when we'll know. All right, and then I've got Figment of Your Imagination Elementary School here. I thought a good visual with some numbers. I'm a math teacher by trade, so let's just put it in here and let's kind of see how this thing works. So if we come up to this elementary school, and remember for elementary schools, CCR is ignored. We don't have a college and career ready there. But let's say for achievement, they get a 3.4. Of course, remembering we don't really know what the scales are yet, but we will. So they end up with a 3.4. Their growth is a 3, and their lowest 25% growth is a 5. So you can see up in the chart at the top right, those numbers are put under the level. You've got your 3.4, your 3, and your 5. But you remember from way back in the first slide, they're all weighted. So 50% comes from the achievement, so that gives us a 1.7. 40% comes from the growth of a 3, that's a 1.2. 10% comes from the 5 growth, that's a 0.5. Add them all up, get to 3.4. Go down to the scale, that gives you a C. So simple yet complicated. That is how schools will get letter grades this year. So hopefully that was a succinct explanation of it, and I can answer any questions that you have about it that I know the answers to.
So achievement is just TCAP scores?
Achievement is, did you hit proficiency? So what percent of your kids hit proficiency in each of the subject areas? And then those are weighted, if you remember on that slide, English and math are worth double. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So just, did you make it or did you not make it?
Okay.
Yes,
As
ma'am.
you've gone to meetings about this, how do people across the state feel about it? I think it's, but what are you hearing?
Well, we went to the public meeting in Chattanooga, and it was sparsely attended, I will say that. And you can read in the media, you know, you can see all sides of the issue, but most of the media coverage is about the idea that it's kind of rushed, it's been fast. We've been getting things very late. We're actually, Ms. O'Brien and I are actually still verifying data that will go into this that's due on Wednesday. So it's been very rushed and tough.
Has this been discussed or talked about within the State Department, or who finally decided this is what was going to be done?
Well, go ahead.
Well, it's the Commissioner of Education.
Mm-hmm.
So the Commissioner of Education, by law, by state statute, has final say on what this calculation is, not the State Board of Education, not legislators, not any voting body. It's the Commissioner of Education says what this is, and that's by state law. So that's where we are. We have a new commissioner, and she is implementing the law, and this is where we are right now. But as Mr. Carr said, we still don't know a lot of the details for something that's coming out in 18 days or whatever the I don't know what the day is, but very soon.
So we can't even blame the legislators on this.
Well, the legislators voted the law in, obviously,
Yes.
but I think ultimately the commissioner is the one that decides the formula. And then I know her department presented that to the state board, and then it's just been very fast, and it's been rolling pretty quickly. And it's a little frustrating, I would say. If you ask what I'm hearing all my colleagues being frustrated that we're getting piles of data files to verify and put into this formula, and we don't really know what the final rules are. And so we're kind of going into it blind, but Cleveland has great schools, so regardless of what letter you put on them, they're a good school.
Yeah.
Okay, any more questions?
And I would just add to that, we won't know the scores until, school's out. Our offices are closed on the 21st. The scores come out that day. So take that for what it's worth. But I second what Mr. Carr just said. We have fantastic teachers. We have fantastic school leadership that are doing great jobs every single day. And we're going to continue to do great jobs every single day, regardless of what the score is. We know we have things we do extremely well. We know we have areas to grow in, and we're going to keep focusing on that. So I appreciate your information. Best presentation I've seen on this yet. So good job.
Well, maybe I can go work for the commissioner.
Go on the road with it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Next on the agenda, we have first reading of policies. Jody Riggins.
I think I'm taking that.
Okay.
My turn of rotation, as it were, but thankfully I think Ms. McKay is going to help me on this when we get in here. A little while back, we had a question about our site committee and how long that, I think the policy initially had it that it was a per project type of proposal, and the discussion was to have that more of a permanent fixture, much like our executive committee is. And so we asked, I believe that we asked them to put some language to that and how it would look. And these policies, the first one, let's see what the number of that is. The first policy, 1.300, simply adds the executive, the facilities committee as a permanent policy. But the meat of this is over into 1.305. And so this has been approved by the TSBA as being appropriate language should we wish to make this more of a permanent committee. And as a summary, the chairman would appoint 3 people on an annual basis to this, and it would be 3 of the board members. And then they would meet with whatever outside folks need to be met with for whatever policies, and then vote on those and then bring them to the board for final approval. All of the board members would be welcome at any of those meetings, but I guess the discussion really is that where we want to go, and is this the right language to have? Do you want to add anything onto that?
Yeah, just to clarify, it's a reflection of what we've been doing. We've just never had it in an official policy. So there's no change to the procedures or the structure of the committee or the role or the function of the committee. It's just putting a new name on it and putting it in policy to get it in line with what we do policy-wise. So there's no change to how it runs or how it functions.
So that is my portion of this introduction. I can field any questions, but I think it's fairly succinct on what the proposal is with that policy.
All right. Any questions? Comments? All right. I want to entertain these 2 policies as first reading of policies.
I'll move.
Got a second? Second. Okay. So we have a first and a second. All in favor of accepting these as the first reading for policies 1.300 and 1.305, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it passes. All right, next on the agenda, we have strategic plan focus. Dr. Cody Raper.
Good evening, Board. I'm excited to be here with you and tell you some updates in the Innovation and Technology Department. So we have developed and you have voted on an innovation or technology strategic plan 3-year technology strategic plan. And you can always see the whole document at clv.city/tech plan is the whole strategic plan. But goals that we currently have in progress are 2, 3, 8, and 12, and I'm going to kind of go through each one of those really quickly. So we are, in February actually, we're going to have contractors who begin installing fiber upgrades for this campus. Primarily that's for Yates and Ross. This office doesn't generate too much traffic. But we have old 1 gig multi-mode fiber that is currently installed. So all of our internet for this site runs into the maintenance building, and then we feed out fiber to the individual schools. And that fiber is direly in need of updates. So we will begin that in February of 2024. This is a goal that has been moved up. It was originally slated to happen later, but our uninterruptible power supply infrastructure has not been updated in some time, and we're starting to have switch outages across the districts, which affects learning, which affects people connecting to the internet, because our UPSs need updated. And so I've gone ahead and put this in this year's E-rate process, which means that the federal government will pay for 85% of these upgrades, and we'll pay for 15%. And we should be able to get those in and installed in the fall. These, if anybody's a tech nerd, these are the UPSs that we went with. They're made by Panduit. They're new to the UPS game, but they've been doing power supplies for a long time, and they make a really good product. We have a strategic plan goal of reviewing the applications that we use for teachers on behalf of the teachers for COPPA and other data safety laws. So you'll see a quick summary up on the screens. I won't go through each one of those, but suffice it to say that we're covered by several laws that say it is important and imperative that we keep student data safe. And so how do we do that? Of course, at the district level, we're reviewing what data we're sending out. But in the classrooms, it kind of becomes the teacher's responsibility right now to look through, investigate any applications or websites they may be using in their classes. And we want to take that burden off the teacher. And so we started this COPPA and data safety review team. I purchased the One Ed Tech Trusted Apps dashboard. And this is going to be a place for us to consolidate all of our apps that we've vetted and approved or disapproved in the one place for teachers to go through and review it. One Ed Tech makes it really easy for me and Michael to actually go through and see all the different applications, check for COPPA compliance, check for FERPA compliance, because they have professional reviewers who've already done it for many applications. And then we can approve or disapprove from there. This is an example of a One Ed Tech review an app. In this case, it's Canvas. So you can see quickly, and all the details aren't important, but you can see quickly a lot of check marks, a lot of green. Canvas is meeting COPPA and FERPA compliance. Here's another app that we had a teacher request. It's called CapCut, which is made by ByteDance, which owns TikTok. And so you'll see a whole lot of more reds and yellows, and it doesn't meet FERPA and COPPA compliance. So this is an example of an app that we've disallowed for teachers to use in the classroom in any way that would have student data. This is what the dashboard is actually going to look like for teachers. So they'll get to it through their ClassLink single sign-on interface. And so they'll be able to go through and see all the apps that have been pre-vetted. We haven't rolled this out to teachers yet. We've talked to administrators about it, and we'll be rolling it out to teachers over the next few months. Any questions about this dashboard or vetting process? Yes?
When you say make these unavailable, that means they can't install it, right? The teacher cannot install it unless you approve it.
Sure. So most of the apps we're referring to would be more websites. So I use the term app, but they're usually websites. So the idea here is that you would not enter student data into any application that hasn't been pre-vetted by the district. We also had a strategic plan goal of providing non-certified staff devices. Right now, that's something that some schools do, but across the board, we haven't given every non-certified staff who works with students who may need a device. And using some ESSER money, we were able to roll this up a year And we have purchased devices for all non-certified staff who principals said needed a device to do their job. So for K-5 and 9 through 12 staff, we purchased Chromebooks. And for 6th through 8th grade non-certified staff, we purchased iPads. And the distinction there was principal preference. So speaking of iPads, we rolled out iPads for the first time this year to Cleveland Middle School. And Nat, feel free to jump in if you have anything to throw in. But the feedback I'm getting are that teachers and students overwhelmingly prefer the iPads that we've rolled out. Here's a quote from a teacher. I definitely like the iPads much better for student use than I did the MacBooks, the apps, that was misspelled, the apps that are available to students, and the usability of them being more mobile has allowed us to be more creative. Using them as a part of a blended classroom has helped differentiate for students tremendously. Another quote, I love having the iPads and using them in math with the flexibility of students being able to write on the iPad and show their work. Additionally, I love the iPads for their homework because they can do it digitally and still show their work, and I can grade quickly and give feedback quicker with Google Classroom. Same is true for assessments. I also love the projects and deeper thinking that can be done with the iPad. I could go on forever. Some of the most compelling conversations I've had with teachers about the iPads have actually been in the math classroom, because it's really hard to utilize any educational apps in the math classroom if you're using a standard computer. But with the iPad, where you can actually write on the screen and interact with it, it can be a game changer. As a reminder, this is the device that was provided to the middle school. So it has the keyboard combo case that goes on it, and then it can also be there in several different arrangements. I'm a teacher at heart, so the instruction side is near and dear to me. However, from the practical side of things, I really like seeing these numbers on damages. So August through November of last year, we had 289 MacBooks that were damaged. So year over year, August through December of this year, we had 15 iPads that are damaged. Now, you may say these are new, people are treating them differently, but we've seen the exact same numbers with Chromebooks, with new MacBooks. So we really are seeing a very big difference in damages. So one, that's keeping devices in students' hands. We're not having to interrupt learning to go switch out those devices, and it's more efficient for us. Sarah Bryson is the Blade facilitator at Cleveland Middle School. So she kind of heads up instructional technology there. And she said, since making the shift from MacBooks to iPads, much of the time that I spent on student discipline and computer issues has been freed up to focus on teachers and instructional technology. That's all I had. Anything else from Nat or any questions from the board?
All right. Thanks, Cody. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Next on the agenda, we have legislative update. You have anything you want to share? Carolyn?
Well, no, but I'd like to hear from some of you all who went to well, we all went, but if you would share something that you learned or that was beneficial to you, or something that was inspiring, I'd like to hear. The only thing that I know that's come up since our meeting in Nashville was something I have seen this week in the paper about the 4th grade. I'm not sure they have proposed it yet, but they are looking at doing the same thing with 4th grade students as they did with 3rd grade this year.
Yeah.
And I haven't. Have you heard?
Well, the other real big thing is the Education Freedom Bill that's being pushed right now with vouchers and private schools. So I'm going to be working on something that I'm going to send out to you all as a draft of some thoughts that I have that I'd like to get your thoughts on when that time comes. So I'm going to be working on something that I can send out, and I don't want to speak for the board offhand, so I want to make sure I get your opinions before I do anything like that. We'll talk more about that.
Okay. Anything else?
What about you, Nate? What was one of the most inspiring or the most informational program that you attended?
Let me pull up mine. I got a bunch of notes. Well, obviously, this is not the most inspiring, but it was kind of cool to have the comedians there and add a different spin, but that was nice. This idea of, let's see, who was this? The role of the school board, collaborative decision-making, fostering trust and transparency, shared governance, accountability and transparency, strategic vision and planning, and ethical leadership. So, every child, every chance, every day.
What about you, Matt?
No, I agree. I mean, a lot of those speakers were motivational, kind of
Right,
inspirational
yes.
teachers, and they were great, and they had a good story. I thought that our summer meeting gave more content in a shorter period of
Right.
time, which I really liked. So I'm looking forward to this summer's legislative conference.
More of a law.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really where, I guess, where my passion is,
Yes,
but
right.
it was a good meeting overall. And getting to see some of the students up there that played
I
was
think-
fantastic.
Right.
Yeah, it was absolutely great.
I think one of the ones that I thought about more was the lady who spoke on Sunday morning about poverty. I just think that sometimes as teachers and leaders with children that we don't really give those children who are in poverty a chance that sometimes that they need. We just assume a lot of things because we're not there. And I just, having, been in education for many, many years, I just think that's a group of children that we need, and our principals and teachers need to just be more aware of the problems that they face.
Yes. She said, poverty is the problem, not the people in it.
Yes.
That was a lasting impression there. So, anything else?
Well, one of the breakout sessions that I went to, and Carolyn went with me, and I can't remember, maybe you were in there too, the legislative liaison session. I thought that was very informative in terms of the things that we as board members can do by fostering and maintaining relationships with legislators at every level, our city council, our mayors, our state representatives.
Right.
There are so many decisions being made that impact us directly, and creating those relationships, maintaining those relationships, and partnering with those individuals can make a tremendous impact to our local community schools.
Yeah, that session on advocacy was really good. It was excellent. Good ideas.
Peggy, anything you want to share?
I will just add in February, TSBA's Legislative and Legal Conference is February, I think, 12th and 13th. And if anybody would be interested in that, we can send information out for that. I'm speaking on a panel on the second day of that, so for what it's worth.
All right, any new business, comments, questions?
I wanted to ask if we had any more information on the paid parental leave for, remember Savannah Shell was asking about that in October.
That goes through HR, and I don't know if we've had any updates on that based on conversation. We can't speak about specific employees at a board meeting. I can't talk about a person. But we can talk in general terms. You want to come say anything if it's...
Yes.
Well, basically the update is, as the law was written, they have given some clarification on who is allowed to take parental leave. It does not follow your traditional classified, certified rules. That's how we traditionally think. Certified as your teachers, classified as not. How that law was written is anybody that is required to have a license for their position is entitled to parental leave.
Okay.
So it would probably be more than a few minutes to kind of explain all the rules and ins and outs of it. But as our policy is currently adopted, it would not apply to most of our classified staff. It would a few. But also as it's written, it wouldn't apply to the director of schools because it's not a requirement for him to have a license. So it is a very interesting piece of legislation. It may see some revision.
I think in January when the legislators come back, you'll see probably some changes to that.
Yeah, it was one of those.
It was not written the best way.
It was written very quickly, so it may see some revisions.
So are you saying that it's going to include standard staff, non-teachers?
It does not include all standard staff.
So
there
then-
are some that would apply to.
So then, I know we asked previously, what would it cost?
Yeah.
It's hard to exactly say that because we would have to go through and calculate. However, I think from our discussions, we don't think it would be a tremendous amount of change, but there would not be any reimbursement from the state for anyone who does not meet that qualification at this point.
Yeah.
It would come out of the general dollars.
Yeah, we would have to.
I would really like for us to have some equity in this area so that staff can take maternity leave.
I would suggest
and get paid for it.
Yeah, my suggestion would be when we go through the next budget cycle,
Yeah.
that would be something we could look at, so you can see the overall picture.
And we can gather some more specifics for you and put that together if we need to.
Okay. Anything else? All right. All in favor of adjourning our meeting, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No opposed? Meeting adjourned, 6:56.
All righty.